The silent observers, the Galactic Forum, occupied a space station larger than most moons, orbiting a neutron star whose radiation had been harnessed to power the diplomatic heart of known civilization. Inside its central chamber, representatives from 417 species gathered beneath a dome that displayed the swirling cosmos above. It was a place built for debate, for compromise, for the peaceful resolution of conflicts that might otherwise tear the galaxy apart. Ambassador David Park stood at the human delegation platform, his weathered hands resting on the smooth surface as he listened to Warlord Vexcor deliver yet another speech dripping with contempt. The Draxian was an imposing figure, nearly 4 meters tall, with 6 limbs and crystalline armor that grew naturally from his exoskeleton. His voice resonated through the chamber like grinding metal. The human territories expand into resource-rich systems while contributing nothing to galactic security, Vexcor declared, his multiple eyes gleaming with calculated aggression. For 150 years, this species has hidden behind treaties and diplomatic protocols. They build no warships. They train no warriors. They are parasites feeding on the strength of others. David remained motionless, though his jaw tightened imperceptibly. He had heard variations of this speech dozens of times over his 20-year career as Earth's chief diplomat. The Draxian Empire had been testing humanity's boundaries for the past decade, each provocation slightly bolder than the last. Unauthorized mining operations in human systems, harassment of civilian vessels, border incursions that were dismissed as navigation errors. Commander Sarah Mitchell watched from the observation deck above, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She was younger than David by 15 years, but her military career stretched back to her academy days, when she had studied the sealed archives that every human officer was required to review exactly once. Those archives were kept in a vault beneath the Lunar Command Center, accessible only to those who swore an oath to remember and to prevent. Sarah had spent 3 days in that vault, reading documents that made her physically ill. She had emerged changed, understanding with absolute clarity why humanity had chosen the path it walked among the stars. We request formal sanctions against the Draxian Empire for their repeated violations of human sovereignty, David said when Vexcor finally finished his grandstanding. His voice was calm, measured, the tone of a man who had practiced patience until it became second nature. We have documented 47 separate incidents in the past standard year alone. Vexcor Eslaf was like rocks tumbling down a mountainside. Sanctions? You request sanctions? He turned to address the full assembly. I propose a simple test. Let us see if humanity is capable of defending even one of their precious colonies. Let us discover whether their pacifism is philosophy or simply cowardice. A ripple of discomfort moved through the chamber. Most species present had grown accustomed to humanity's peaceful nature. Humans were traders, diplomats, scientists. They contributed technology and art to galactic culture. They mediated disputes between other species with remarkable fairness. But they never fought. Not once in a century and a half had humanity deployed military force beyond basic system defense. Some species admired this. Others found it peculiar. A few, like the Draxians, saw it as weakness ripe for exploitation. The session ended without resolution, as most sessions did. David gathered his materials and made his way through the corridors toward the human embassy section. He passed delegates from dozens of worlds, some nodding respectfully, others averting their gaze. Everyone knew the Draxians were pushing toward something, and everyone wondered what would happen when they finally pushed too far. Inner quarters. Sarah received an encrypted transmission from Earth. The message was brief, the content expected, but nonetheless heavy. The medical station at Proxima Outpost had been destroyed. Initial reports indicated deliberate targeting. Casualty estimates were being compiled, but early numbers suggested over 8,000 dead. She sat in silence for a long minute, staring at the message without really seeing it. 8,000 people. Doctors, nurses, researchers, support staff. Families who had traveled to the frontier to help colonists and explorers maintain their health in the harsh environments of newly settled worlds. Gone because Vexcor wanted to make a point. Sarah opened a secure channel to David's office. His face appeared on her screen, and she saw immediately that he had received the same news. "They're calling it an accident," David said before she could speak. "Weapons malfunctioned during a training exercise. The Draxian delegation has already issued an apology and offered compensation. Do they actually think we'll accept that?" Sarah's voice was tight with controlled anger. "They think we have no choice." "What are we going to do, Sarah? Start a war over an accident?" David's tone carried no sarcasm, only a weariness that came from years of swallowing provocations. "We could tell them the truth. We could show them what we're capable of. And become exactly what we left behind? Become the species we swore we would never be again?" David leaned forward, his face filling the screen. "You've seen the archives. You know what happens when we let ourselves become that." Sarah closed her eyes. She did know. She had seen the historical records, the casualty figures that climbed into hundreds of millions. She had read tactical assessments of wars fought with such ferocity that entire continents became uninhabitable. She had studied the psychological profiles of soldiers who had become so efficient at killing that they stopped, recognizing their enemies as living beings. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself 17 times before finally reaching the stars. 17 separate conflicts that brought civilization to the brink of extinction. The last one had ended not with victory, but with exhaustion, when both sides realized that one more war would mean the end of everything. The choice humanity made after that final conflict was radical. They would keep the knowledge, keep the capability, but seal it away. They would join the galactic community as peacekeepers, as mediators, as the species that chose understanding over violence. And they would do this not because they were incapable of war, but because they understood it too well. "There's someone I want you to meet," David said, interrupting her thoughts. "A Quilari researcher named Kirisith. She's been studying human history, and she's discovered something interesting." The next day, Sarah met Kirisith in one of the station's public gardens, a vast space filled with plants from hundreds of worlds. The Quilari was a delicate being, barely a meter tall, with translucent skin that revealed the bioluminescent organs beneath. Her species were known as the galaxy's archivists, beings who dedicated their long lives to preserving knowledge. "Commander Mitchell," Kiriseth greeted her with a melodic voice that seemed to resonate in multiple frequencies. "Thank you for meeting with me. I realize this is a difficult time for your people. Ambassador Park said you've been researching human history. May I ask why?" Kiriseth gestured toward a bench, and they sat together beneath a tree that resembled Earth's willows, but grew crystalline leaves that chimed softly in the artificial breeze. "Because your species is an anomaly, Commander. In all my centuries of study, I have never encountered a people who possess such a comprehensive understanding of warfare, yet choose so completely to abstain from it." Sarah felt her shoulders tense. "We're not the only peaceful species in the galaxy." "No, but you are the only species that is peaceful by choice rather than nature. The Quilari are peaceful because we lack the capacity for organized violence. The Venari are peaceful because their biology makes aggression painful. But humans? Your history is written in blood across thousands of years. Your evolutionary path selected for aggression, for tactical thinking, for the ability to coordinate large-scale conflicts. Yet you choose peace. We learn from our mistakes. Did you? Or did you simply hide from them?" Kiriseth's eyes, large and multifaceted, regarded Sarah with unexpected intensity. "I have been accessing your public historical databases. The records stop at a very specific point, shortly before you achieved faster-than-light travel. Everything before that is available. Everything after is classified at the highest levels." "What happened, Commander? What did humanity do that made you seal away your own story?" Sarah stood, her instinct to end this conversation warring with a growing certainty that secrets were becoming more dangerous than truth. "We looked into the abyss, Kiraseth. We perfected the art of killing until we became so efficient at it that we nearly erased ourselves from existence. And when we finally stopped, when we finally put down our weapons and chose a different path, we made a promise. We would remember what we had been, but we would never become that again unless the alternative was extinction. And now?" The Qualari's voice was soft. "The Draxians test you repeatedly. They killed 8,000 of your people yesterday. What will it take for you to break that promise?" Sarah looked up through the crystal leaves at the stars beyond. "I hope we never find out." But even as she spoke those words, another message was arriving at human colonies across the galaxy. Draxian fleet elements were taking up positions around Terra Nova, humanity's agricultural world that fed 17 colonies and employed over 2 million people. Vexcor was making his move, confident that humanity would negotiate, would compromise, would do anything except fight. On Earth, in a room deep beneath the Lunar Command Center, automated systems began running diagnostics on equipment that had not been activated in 150 years. Protocol gates unlocked. Sealed orders were transmitted to commanders who had trained their entire careers for a moment they prayed would never come. Ambassador David Park stood before the Galactic Forum one final time. His face composed, but his eyes carrying a weight that made even Vexcor pause. "For 150 years, humanity has chosen peace," David began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "We have absorbed insults, weathered provocations, and mourned our dead while pursuing diplomatic solutions. We have done this not because we are weak, but because we remember the cost of strength. We remember what we were, and we chose to become something better." He paused, and in that moment, Kiraseth, watching from the archives, felt a chill run through her translucent form. Yesterday, the Draxian Empire destroyed a medical station, killing 8,000 civilians. Today, they have surrounded Terra Nova with military forces, threatening 2 million more. They believe we will negotiate. They believe we will surrender. They believe our choice of peace means we have forgotten how to do anything else. David's hands gripped the podium, and for the first time in his long career, his voice carried something other than diplomatic calm. It carried grief. They are wrong. Humanity remembers everything. We have simply been choosing not to use that knowledge. But you have made that choice impossible. So now, for the first and final time, we give you this warning. Withdraw your forces from Terra Nova within 72 hours. Release all human prisoners. Submit to independent investigation of your actions. Or learn what humanity has spent 150 years trying to help you avoid. Vexcor's laugh echoed through the chamber. Empty threats from a species of cowards. You have no military, no weapons, no will to fight. Terra Nova will become a Draxian protectorate, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. David Park closed his eyes for just a moment, and when he opened them again, every being in that chamber saw something that made their blood run cold. They saw sorrow. They saw regret. And beneath both, they saw certainty. "Then may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on you," David said quietly. "Because we will not." He turned and walked from the chamber, and as he did, across human space, from Earth to the furthest colonies, a single encrypted command was transmitted. 2 words that would change the galaxy forever. Protocol. Remembrance. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of a ship that did not officially exist, surrounded by a crew that had trained in secret for their entire careers, and gave the order that ended humanity's age of peace. All units, begin deployment. Show them what we remember. Asterisk the awakening storm. The countdown began at exactly 72 hours, displayed on every screen in human space, and broadcast to the Galactic Forum. It was not a threat. It was a promise, ticking away with mechanical precision, while the galaxy watched and waited to see if humanity would truly break its long peace. Vexcor spent those first hours celebrating. He broadcast messages to the Draxian home world, describing how he had called the humans' bluff and secured a rich agricultural world without firing a shot. His fleet maintained position around Terra Nova, a steel noose of 43 warships that represented one of the largest military concentrations in the sector. The colonists below went about their work with strange calm. They harvested crops, tended livestock, and maintained vast agricultural systems that fed millions across human space. They did not panic. They did not flee. They simply continued their lives while the countdown ticked away above them. Kiraseth watched from her archives, accessing every information stream she could find. She had spent the past day diving deeper into human history, accessing databases that were technically public but practically ignored. What she found made her question everything she thought she understood about the species she had been studying. Humans had not just fought wars. They had industrialized them. They had turned killing into a science, complete with research institutions, academic journals, and military academies that trained generations in the art of organized violence. They had developed weapons capable of ending civilization, and then, inexplicably, stepped back from the brink, but they had never forgotten. Every human officer received training in what they called historical warfare. Every colony maintained sealed armories that were inspected annually but never opened. Every civilian ship carried encryption protocols that could, in specific circumstances, transform ordinary vessels into military assets. Humanity had not abandoned violence. They had simply put it to sleep, with one hand always on the emergency brake dot at the 48-hour mark. Something strange began happening across Draxian space. Minor system failures plagued military installations. Communication networks experienced unexplained interference. Sensor arrays reported phantom contacts that disappeared before they could be verified. Nothing catastrophic, nothing that suggested coordinated attack. Just an unsettling series of technical difficulties that put the Draxian military on edge. Vexcor dismissed these reports as coincidence or sabotage by internal political enemies. He kept his attention focused on Terra Nova, where the real prize waited. His intelligence officers assured him that humanity possessed no significant military capability. Their ship manifests showed cargo vessels, scientific research platforms, and civilian transports. Nothing that could challenge Draxian battle fleet. They were looking at the wrong manifests. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood in the command center of the HSNS Remembrance, a vessel that had been officially listed as a deep space research station for the past 90 years. Around her, hundreds of officers monitored displays showing tactical situations across 17 star systems. Every person in this room had spent their career preparing for this moment while hoping it would never come. Status report, Sarah said quietly. All stealth networks are active and positioned, replied her tactical officer. A woman named Chun, whose grandmother had served in the last war on Earth. The Draxians have detected approximately 3% of our actual deployments. They believe they're seeing sensor ghosts. Asset status? Civilian fleet conversion is complete. Every cargo vessel, mining ship, and transport within 5 systems of Terra Nova has been equipped and briefed. They're awaiting final authorization. Sarah nodded slowly. This was the heart of humanity's hidden capability. They had not built secret warships, because warships could not be hidden forever. Instead, they had designed every vessel they launched with dual purposes. Cargo ships carried modular weapon systems in their holds, disguised as standard shipping containers. Mining vessels possessed sensor arrays powerful enough for military targeting. Even passenger transports had been built with reinforced hulls and power systems that could support military-grade shields. Humanity had turned their entire civilian infrastructure into a sleeping military that could be awakened with a single command. And the Sentinels? Sarah asked. Shun's expression became grim. Standing by. They understand their mission. The Sentinels were volunteers, every one of them. They crewed the ships that would engage the Draxian fleet directly, knowing that some would not survive. They had trained in secret, studied tactics that were forbidden knowledge, and prepared themselves mentally for the reality of combat. Many were descendants of soldiers from Earth's final wars. They carried the weight of history in their genes, and their hearts dotted 24 hours. Ambassador David Park addressed the Galactic Forum one final time. His message was brief and delivered without diplomatic niceties. The Draxian Empire has not withdrawn its forces. 8 hours ago, they fired on a civilian evacuation transport attempting to leave Terra Nova, killing 237 people. They did this while laughing, while broadcasting their contempt for human life across their fleet communications. We have recovered and translated these broadcasts. We are sharing them now with the full forum. The recordings played. Draxian voices celebrating each successful hit on the defenseless transport. Officers placing bets on how many humans they could kill before the ship's life support failed. Vexcor himself authorizing the attack as a lesson in obedience. The forum chamber fell silent. Even species that had dismissed human complaints as exaggeration could not deny the evidence of deliberate, gleeful murder. In 6 hours, humanity will respond, David continued. We urge all neutral vessels to clear the Terra Nova system immediately. We urge all species to reconsider their relationships with powers that celebrate atrocity. And we urge you to remember, in the days to come, that we gave every possible opportunity for peace. He disconnected, and across the galaxy, military analysts from hundreds of species scrambled to understand what 6,000 humans in a scattered civilian fleet could possibly do against a Draxian battle fleet that they were about to find. Out, Kiraseth made a decision that would affect the rest of her long life. She began broadcasting. Using her credentials as a Qualari archivist, she accessed historical footage from Earth's databases, material that was technically public, but never examined by outsiders. She showed the galaxy what humanity had been, the great wars where millions died in trenches that spanned continents. A nuclear age where 2 nations held each other hostage with weapons that could boil oceans. The final conflict, where automated weapon systems achieved such precision that entire armies could be eliminated in hours. The aftermath, where survivors looked at the ruins of their civilization and made a choice that defied their every instinct. This is what humanity left behind, Kiraseth narrated in her melodic voice. Her words translated into 400 languages simultaneously. This is what they chose to abandon, not because they forgot, but because they remembered too well. They understood that the path of violence leads only to extinction. So they built something different. They built peace on a foundation of memory and restraint. Her broadcast reached billions. On Draxian worlds, military families watched historical footage of human warfare and began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. On neutral worlds, politicians who had dismissed humanity as irrelevant started making urgent calls to their fleets, ordering them far from human space. Vexcor, in his flagship above Terra Nova, watched Kirasith's broadcast with growing contempt. Ancient history, he declared to his officers. Wars fought with primitive weapons by primitive peoples. We are facing the descendants of those primitives, softened by generations of peace. When the deadline expires, we will teach them the price of empty threats. The countdown reached 0 at exactly the appointed moment. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Draxian fleet maintained position. Terra Nova turned peacefully below. Stars shone unchanged above Dot. Then the civilian fleet stopped pretending. 40 cargo vessels that had been drifting in seemingly random orbits suddenly aligned with geometric precision. Their hulls split open, revealing weapon systems that had been built into their structures during original construction. Mining ships shed their industrial equipment like snakes shedding skin, exposing military-grade engines and targeting arrays. Passenger transports deployed shield generators that had been disguised as environmental systems dot and behind them. Emerging from positions that had been occupied for weeks but rendered invisible through technology the galaxy did not know humanity possessed, came the Sentinels. 117 ships that looked like nothing the galaxy had ever seen because they had been designed using principles from Earth's final wars, refined and improved during a century and a half of secret development. Commander, Sarah Mitchell's voice cut through every Draxian communication channel simultaneously, delivered in perfect Draxian dialect. Warlord Vexcor, your fleet is surrounded. You are outmaneuvered, outgunned, and out of time. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender for trial. After that, we will demonstrate what 150 years of restraint has been protecting you from. Vexcor's response was rage. He ordered his fleet to open fire, confident that numbers and Draxian military superiority would prevail. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Humanity did not fight like other species. They did not rely on overwhelming firepower or massive ship-to-ship combat. Instead, they fought with terrifying precision, using tactics developed during centuries of conflict against themselves, the deadliest enemy they had ever faced. Draxian ships found their communications jammed, their sensors deceived, their targeting systems compromised by intrusion software that had been planted weeks ago. During those mysterious technical failures, human vessels moved in coordinated patterns that seemed almost choreographed, each ship supporting others in a complex dance of mutual protection and overlapping fields of fire. When the Draxians tried to target the civilian vessels, they discovered that those defenseless cargo ships carried point defense systems capable of intercepting 97% of incoming fire. When they tried to focus on the Sentinels, they found that human military vessels were protected by shields that adapted in real time to incoming weapons, learning and adjusting with each shot. The humans did not aim to destroy. They aimed to disable. Precision strikes took out engines, weapons, and life support, leaving Draxian crews alive but helpless. Every shot was calculated. Every target was verified. There was no rage in the human attack, no fury or revenge. Just cold, mechanical efficiency that was somehow more terrifying than any battle fury. Vexcor's flagship was the last to fall. Sarah Mitchell personally disabled it, her weapons carefully targeting specific systems while deliberately avoiding crew quarters. As the great vessel drifted powerless in space, she opened a direct channel to its bridge. Warlord Vexcor, your fleet has been neutralized. Your crews are alive and will receive medical attention. You will be tried for your crimes according to galactic law, and you will spend the rest of your life understanding the difference between strength and violence. The Draxian warlord, surrounded by failing systems and defeated officers, could only stare at the human commander's face on his screen. There was no triumph there, no satisfaction, only sadness. We did not want this, Sarah said quietly. We spent 150 years proving that there was another way. You forced us to remember what we had tried so hard to forget. Across the galaxy, species that had considered challenging humanity quietly withdrew their fleets. Political bodies that had dismissed human complaints began drafting apologies. Aggressive empires suddenly discovered the virtue of peaceful negotiation. And in the Galactic Forum, Ambassador David Park stood before a chamber filled with species that would never again see humanity as weak. "We propose the formation of the Sentinels of Peace," he announced. "A coalition force drawn from all willing species, trained in conflict prevention and rapid response to aggression. Humanity will contribute our knowledge, our tactics, and our technology. But we will not serve alone. We will not be the galaxy's police. We will be its deterrent, its last resort, its reminder that peace is not the absence of capability, but the choice to use that capability wisely." The proposal passed unanimously. No one voted against it. No one dared doubt in the weeks that followed. Kirisev compiled her research into a volume that would become required reading across the galaxy. She called it The Burden of Memory, Humanity's Choice and Its Cost. In it, she documented not just humanity's capacity for war, but their equal capacity for restraint. She showed how they had transformed their violent nature into a tool for protecting peace rather than destroying it. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood before the memorial wall in the Lunar Command Center, where the names of every human who had died in the Draxian crisis were inscribed. 8,000 from the medical station, 237 from the evacuation transport, 12 sentinels who had fallen during the battle at Terra Nova, each name a reminder of the price of peace and the cost of its failure. "Commander?" A young officer approached hesitantly. "The new recruits have arrived. They're asking about the archives. They want to know what we remembered." Sarah turned from the wall, her expression grave. "Then show them. All of it? Every war, every atrocity, every lesson we learned through blood and fire. And when they're finished, when they understand what we're capable of, ask them the only question that matters." "What question, Commander?" "Can they carry the weight of never wanting to use that knowledge, while being ready to use it if they must? Can they be strong enough to choose peace every single day, even when violence would be easier?" The officer nodded slowly, understanding settling on her young face. Humanity had awakened. They had shown the galaxy what they could do. But more importantly, they had shown what they chose not to do, except when all other choices were exhausted. They had proven that the strongest warriors are those who fight only when there is no other option, and who return to peace the moment that option reappears. The galaxy would never mock humanity's peaceful nature again. They had learned the truth that humans had known for 150 years. The species most capable of violence are sometimes the ones most desperate to avoid it, because they alone understand its true cost. And in that understanding, humanity had finally found their purpose among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as guardians of a peace they had learned to value through the hardest lessons their history could teach. The story of humanity's awakening spread across 1,000 worlds, told and retold until it became legend. And always, it ended with the same question. What happens when a species that understands war better than any other finally chooses to wage it? The galaxy had learned the answer. They prayed they would never need to remember it again. Asterisk.